This is flyer number 435, part 1b, due to a battery problem. Continuing straight on. Masculists argue that society needs to adopt a new principle when it comes to separation of couples that operates on the FIP principle. That is, that both parties in the separation should be seen as FIPs, that is, financially independent persons, who have no financial obligations to each other. So when they separate, they take away what they have individually earned. In the case of women dropping out of the workplace for say 6 years, until the second child is off to kindergarten, then Masculists and feminists are pushing for governments to pay these stay-at-home moms a maternity wage that has a value, that is in monetary terms, that reflects the skill level of a housewife. Since raising kids can be done by nearly any woman, even of low intelligence, being a mother is not judged to be a high-skill profession, for the simple reason that any woman can fucking raise kids. One can then readily argue that if a high-powered, well-paid woman decides to have kids and receives the government maternity wage, then she will suffer greatly financially, since her maternity wage will be considerably lower than her former high-powered working salary as a high-powered working female. If this jump downwards in salary causes many such high-powered women to reject maternity, who thus contribute to the crash in the birth rate, then governments will need to increase the maternity wage so that fewer women come to the conclusion that stopping work to have kids is too costly. The Hungarian government, for example, is now spending about 5% of its GNP on measures to promote the birth rate, including substantial payments to women to stay at home and have kids. For Masculists, raising kids is not a skilled task because any woman can do that. It's not status worthy. For example, many an upper middle class professional woman hires a nanny to babysit her kids while she's at work during the day. Typically, these many childminders are a lot dumber than the biological mothers, thus confirming the idea accepted, in brackets, perhaps unconsciously, by the mothers, that child sitting is a rather unskilled task that a much dumber nanny can do adequately. The Masculists have a principle that says, in the form of a slogan, a salary to fit the job, analogous to the legal slogan, a punishment to fit the crime. That is, that the severity of a punishment should depend on the seriousness of the crime. For example, a judge would not fine someone $1 million for spitting in a street, nor fine someone $1 for murdering the judge's wife. This seems to be common sense. Similarly, the economy tends to pay a salary level that reflects the difficulty and prestige of the job of the employee. For example, surgeons and talented authors are well paid, since they perform difficult and prestigious tasks. Childminding and child raising is not a difficult task, therefore it should not be highly paid. Therefore the government should not pay highly for women to stay at home and raise kids. Child raisers should be paid proportionately to the difficulty of their job, their task, which is not much. Another factor in determining how high a maternity salary a woman should get is that if the government pays a mother a salary that is proportional to what her husband earns, then the wives of husbands who earn much less than professional upper middle class husbands with high IQs and very high salaries will complain bitterly that these poorer child-raising women who are performing the same, in capital letters, task as the mothers married to much richer men, are getting a lower maternity wage than their upper middle class equivalents. This would counter the historical principle of equal pay for equal work that the feminists of the 50s and 60s were pushing for when men were being better paid for the same work as performed by women, which the feminists thought was highly unjust and pushed politically and successfully to have this injustice removed. Now a bit more about gender political history, and from a Masculist historical viewpoint. Masculists claim that men liberated women, that is, from household drudgery, by giving women the pill, household gadgets, science-based medicine, a life expectancy well into the 80s, so that women, even those who have their 2 kids and stay at home for 6 years until their second kid is off to kindergarten, still have a career window of half a century, so have a powerful moral duty as pushed heftily by the Masculists to get off their fat parasitic asses and FIP up by getting career competent educations, so that a woman can be a FIP as an adult and not parasite off the money and labour of a man. The Masculists have an important political aim, namely the creation of a FIP society, in which all adults are FIPs, so that girls are socialised by parents and taught by teachers and professors to be FIPs by bothering to study career competent majors at high school and college, and not the fluffy crap majors that in practice 80% of 16-year-old young women choose to study, making them fluffy crappers as adults, who then expect to be able to parasite off the money and labour of some gullible, stupid, ignorant, manslavable man who will work for her so she can raise her kids in a middle-class house that he pays for. The MGTOWs, men going their own way, and Masculists are causing the supply of such gullible, manslavable men to dry up, as these 2 branches of the men's lib movement, the manosphere, are using the internet to persuade young men that the divorce courts have been taken over by hated, in brackets, by Masculists, fluffy feminist hypocrites who have made divorce so toxic for males that they have made marriage and paternity toxic for males, causing Masculists to see these fluffy feminist hypocrites as indirect genociders, since now in many countries 70% of young men now refuse to marry, reject paternity, because they refuse to accept the odds of 1 chance in 4 of losing their kids in the hated fluffy feminist controlled divorce courts. Masculists want the creation of a FIP society where both sexes are raised to be FIPs, with the expectation that each individual, male or female, is expected to be a FIP who lives according to the FIP Principle as mentioned above, so that upon separation the man and the woman walk away with what they individually earned, that is, an amount that has nothing to do with what the other partner earned. So if a woman chooses to stay at home to raise kids, an unskilled task that any woman, no matter how stupid and ignorant, can do, then that is her choice. Whereas if her male partner happens to be a genius at making tons of money, then that is entirely his affair. He should have no obligations to pay her for being a housewifing mother. That should be the affair of the state, who pays the mother a maternity wage set at a level according to political decision that is sufficient to entice enough women to stay at home and raise kids so that the population does not crash. This is the end of part 1.